the topic that I am going to be talking about today was just like coming, and I was like, why wait until noon? It's coming now. So first things first, it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And if any of you are like me, we learned about him when we were in elementary school. And I very vividly remember being taught that prior to his assassination, there was a woman that attacked him with a letter opener, like stabbed him with it. And I was just kind of looking at that whole situation as a kid going, whoa, this dude was out there like saying what he had to say, got attacked like physically, and still had the courage to continue saying what he had to say, right? Like that incident didn't stop him. So even amongst like the physical attacks and the fear and everything else that he was going through, he still spoke and said his message. And I was like, that's a big deal, right? Because how many of us, I'll speak for myself, I grew up where children should be seen and not heard, right? Like that in and of itself led me to like not say things a lot of times, especially in the face of fear, and to like freeze and clam up, right? And I think in part it was identifying what I was really feeling at the time. Like we're not taught that as kids, right? We're not taught to identify like, I'm sad, oh, I'm happy, oh, I'm angry, oh, I'm like depressed, oh, I feel guilty. Like back when I was a kid, that wasn't something that growing up it was done. Like what was done is like, oh, you should be happy, right? Or oh, I got this one a lot, like if I was crying, I better have a reason to cry, right? And like looking back at it as an adult, I'm like, what would have been a good reason to cry? Like what would that have been back then, right? But of course I know like my parents were just passing on what they knew as kids, but as an adult I look back and I see that now. But like when were we taught that? When were we taught emotional intelligence? When were we taught to teach that? Like when were we taught that even in the face of fear, it's okay to still do something and be afraid and still do it, right? Like we see all the memes about it, right? And like they're cool and they sound great, but were we really taught how to execute that? Were we really taught how to identify like, shit, I'm sad and it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to be sad fully and completely and not push it on the side? Were we taught that our anger was okay, or that we needed to figure out why we were angry? I wasn't. I mean, anger was acceptable and it was accepted in my family. That was kind of the preferred emotion, I think. Like, I feel like that's what it was for us. Like, you could be angry, just don't take your anger out on someone, right? But then there was also this acceptable range of anger. Like, if one of us was too angry, then we were made fun of for being too angry. And so it was sort of like this weird, it was better to be happy. Of course, if like happy was the best, right? But then you could be anger, but like sadness, no, that wasn't allowed, right? And so if we're not taught to identify the emotions that we're feeling, and then we become numb, can we really do anything from numb that will bring us any sort of emotion? Like, no. And to think about it, like this Martin Luther King was well before I was born. And this dude was out there like speaking his message, saying what he had to say through fear, through physical attacks, through anger, and he came from this place of like, no, I'm going to educate people and I want them to change their own minds, right? Like the way that he delivered what he had to say was with class, right? It wasn't like, no, you're going to do this. It was like, hey, if we did this instead, this is what could happen. And like left it up to the people to decide, Like he was so before his time even, right? And like then comes like the era that I was born in, which is between the baby boomers and the millennials. We're sort of that generation X, but not anyway, where like we don't even know how to identify how we're feeling, and so we just do nothing and we say nothing. That's like a huge shift, right? And I have to wonder, like, was it because of some of the attacks to this outspoken gentleman that things got tapered down, stomped out, right? Like I wonder that. But even more so, I'm wondering, what have we stopped saying even though we want to? What if we, because we've just numbed out, we don't know how to identify what we're even feeling or expressing. Like we're certainly not telling the world, hey, I'm depressed, hey, I'm anxious. I know I'm not. And I know I can get that way, right? And so it's sort of like this shame of feeling these emotions that are innately human. So it's this weird, like, how did we go from that to this to where we are now? And now what? Now could we identify and like just take the time to breathe and check in with ourselves and be like, no, this is how I'm feeling and it's okay. And one, acknowledging that it's okay. And then two, like not try to fix it. Right? Like for the controller in me, I'm like, oh wait, you don't want me to fix that? So not only do you want me to feel, but you want me to like keep feeling and leave it alone. And I went to this great talk that my friend Krista did, and she was like, Destiny, what if you just surf the wave? What if you just surf the wave of depression and anxiety? And instead of trying to get off early and getting crushed by the wave and getting like taken out by it, you just surf it all the way into the shore. And when you get there, you're going to get off in shallow water. And then you can decide if you want to like get off onto the beach or go back in and surf. And I was like, that's so positive, right? Like identifying that this is where I'm at, but just allowing it to happen, just to chill with it. Like, what if we can identify what we're feeling, just allow it, and still say what we want to say and be okay with it and be brave about it? Like, that's pretty kick-ass, right? All right, so I know I threw a lot at you in 7 minutes and 50 seconds. Take the time to digest this. Watch it again if you need to. Share this if you're like, yeah, that, right? Share it with your friends. That would be amazing, because I feel like this is a message that needs to go out. But like, what if? What is it that you would share? I want to know. Like, that's juicy, right? Like, what is it that you would say? I'm super curious. So put it in the comments. All right? That would be amazing. Okay, so until next week, ponder on this one, and peace.